Welcome to Last Letters. I'm your host, Jeremy Locke. Joining us today is United States Air Force Chief La'a Young. Not only is he a chief in the United States Air Force, he's also a husband and father. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing, JT?
I'm doing good. Man, that name's a tongue twister.
It is a tongue twister. Had a couple tries there. You can call me La for short.
La.
Yeah, if you cut the name right down the middle.
Where's that come from?
So La'a is Hawaiian. My dad is from Hawaii, born and raised in Hawaii, and that's how I got my name.
So you grew up in Hawaii?
No. So my dad was in the military. I was born in Okinawa, Japan. When he was stationed out there, I grew most of my life over there between Japan, the Philippines, Korea. And then when I joined the military, I finally had an opportunity to live in Hawaii when I got stationed there for 7 years. So majority of my life, all in the Pacific.
What service was your dad in?
In the Air Force.
He was Air Force as well.
Yeah, Vietnam vet. And then he joined the Air Force, did I think 22 years, and then continued doing civil service with the Air Force.
So you're a military brat.
Military brat, yep.
What does it mean to be a military brat?
That's a good question, man. I mean, I think for me, being a military brat is just a lot of traveling, really. And I know there are some people who join the military that don't really get a chance to get an assignment overseas, but my dad was one of those lucky guys who lived overseas his whole career. For me, military brat is just growing up abroad, really.
Yeah, I too. My dad retired military, Air Force colonel, aeronautical engineer. So I too was a military brat. We didn't get to travel as much as you did. What was it like growing up in the Pacific?
Growing up in the Pacific as a kid, you don't really realize that all the benefits and the opportunities that you have until you grow up. Growing up over in the Philippines, my mom, she's Filipino, and we lived close by where her family was at. So growing up, I had opportunities to visit them and learn a lot about my Filipino heritage and the Filipino culture. Very much different from what we're used to here, right? Then not only that, we got the opportunity to learn about the Japanese culture. Growing up in Okinawa, living in Korea, learning a different culture. So my point being, just now that I'm much older, I realize all the different cultures that I grew up in. I appreciate that because I'm much more open-minded, and I want to try to teach my kids that,
Do you think growing up as you did, jumping around all over the Pacific, how do you think that makes you into the person you are today?
The older that I get, I realize there's so many opportunities I've had that a lot of people don't have. Experience in different cultures gives you a little bit more confidence to go out and about in life, not being afraid of doing anything really, and just being curious.
Were you curious at a young age?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A couple of times my mom would tell stories where it was kind of hard to control me because I was always running off and doing stuff and getting into things.
Like what kind of things?
I'm pretty sure everyone has the same stories where they never came home when the streetlights turned on. I mean, sometimes I would just go hang out at my friend's house and thinking it was okay to hang out there all night long. My friend's mom, she would end up having to ask me like, is it time for you to go home? We used to do all kinds of stuff, man, playing around back in the day. Much more different than the kids growing up today. So,
in what way?
Technology. A lot of the kids today, man, they grow up with the technology that we didn't have as young kids. So I was always outside playing. And that's one of the things I've had challenges with my kids is trying to get them out of the house, man. Sometimes I feel like I'm forcing them to get out of the house, like go get in trouble.
Right.
Do some of the things that I used to get in trouble for. But it's the opposite, right? They're comfortable and just with connecting with their electronics. It's crazy to me.
Do you think that's a good thing for our society?
I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a bad thing because obviously the social interaction face to face, kind of like how we're doing right now, right?
Right.
Taking advantage of technology. It just helps us grow, helps us connect with people across the world instantaneously. There's so many benefits to it, but it's just hard to instill some of the things that we grew up with into today's generation.
Yeah, I can remember my mom forcing us out, and it was like, it's 100 degrees outside. She's like, I don't care, get outside. Are you finding it hard to push your kids to get outside?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I got 3 kids. My oldest son, it wasn't really hard. He played baseball. Like from 7 years old, 7 years old, all the way through high school. And, with that, he's outside playing his sports, and especially in Hawaii, he played baseball year round with his friends. He would also hang out with them after baseball. The 2 younger ones, they grew up in like the smartphone technology area, iPads. It's much harder to get those guys out of the house. My middle child, my son, we tried to get him into football. We had him play a lot of flag football, basketball, soccer, then tackle football. None of the sports really caught on, and it's crazy. And then my younger one, my daughter, she's into competitive cheer.
What's competitive cheer?
Man, it's crazy. I had no idea either, too. My wife signed her up for cheer when I was deployed. I thought it was like the regular cheer at like a football game, rec league, or cheerleading during a basketball game in a rec league. Competitive cheer, which is where they travel to different cities and they compete. Like those huge lights and huge stages, and they're actually doing all this tumbling and throwing up in the air. I remember the first comp I went to, I thought I was going to be at a basketball game. I pay at the front door of the gym door, and we walk in, big lights, loudspeakers. I was like, what in the world? First thing I asked my wife was like, how much is this? That's competitive cheer, man. So they're competing. She's traveling all over the place.
So it's like lights, music.
Yeah.
I would have been like, where's the basketball game?
Yeah. They even do a competition in Dallas.
Did they really?
Yeah. We've traveled to Dallas. She's traveled to Disney World. It's nuts.
And she loves it.
She loves it. That's the crazy thing.
What is it about it that she loves?
At a young age, she was very shy and timid. And so my wife did some research on what kind of activities a kid can do to get out and build that social skill. She found out cheer was one of those things. She signed her up, and she just ended up falling in love with it. I think part of it too is like all her friends are doing competitive cheer. So that keeps drawing her back to do it.
It's funny hearing a dad talk about, competitive cheer and see
I'm the
this
cheer
big,
dad.
and seeing this big smile on your face as you're telling her story.
Yeah, I'm definitely one. I didn't think I'd be the cheer dad, and I am the cheer dad.
Do you carry a spirit wand with you?
I don't carry a spirit wand. There are some.
Don't ask me how I knew that.
Yeah. Spirit hands. There are some cheer dads that are more spirit than me, but I don't have a spirit wand.
Who was your mother and father in your life?
My dad is born and raised in Hawaii, the youngest of 6 kids. And then my mom, Filipino, Susanna, born and raised in the Philippines. And they met when my dad was stationed at Clark Air Base, long time ago. Yeah.
What experiences or life lessons has your mother or father taught you that you're now bringing over to your children?
My mom and my dad, they grew up almost similar cultures, sort of tropical, and at the same time, very poor families, right? My mom and my dad have the similar stories of when they would go to school, they would walk to school barefoot. But one thing that they had, that they have in common with both of their cultures is strong family, right? You do everything with family. When my dad was stationed in the Philippines, he was part of this Polynesian group, and the Polynesian group would, they would do everything together like a family, right? Being in the military overseas, kind of gravitate towards people who like similar things. And that's what the Polynesian group had, is they were all from the islands. I remember as a kid, going to those groups, barbecue, they would do their cultural dances, practice the hula and all that good stuff. And my mom would participate. But all the people that were part of the group, they were family. Some of the kids that I knew then as a little kid, probably like 2-3 years old, I know today. One of them is actually Bruce, who I wrote about in my letter. That's who they are. And that's probably the biggest thing that they've instilled in me is the, family and growing up together and being together. And so that's what I try to do with my kids and my cousin Bruce. We live pretty close, and we always try to do things together, like dinners or barbecues. All the kids would be there too, and they'd be running around the house, terrorizing, gallivanting, just hanging out. It's just awesome to see that what my parents instilled in us or in me, that we're doing the exact same thing. So I can see, I like to think that my kids and his kids are going to do the same thing when they get old. I hope. Hopefully technology doesn't separate them from doing that.
Do you connect more with the Hawaiian culture or the Filipino culture?
I think I connect more with the Hawaiian culture. I think that's only because I lived in Hawaii when I was stationed there at an older age. So I was able to appreciate the Hawaiian culture more at an older age. When I lived in the Philippines, I was just a young kid, elementary to like 5th grade. My memories are more just being a kid versus really like appreciating the culture and understanding it more.
Take me through one of those Hawaiian memories.
Oh man, I got so many, man. So I moved to Hawaii when I got stationed there in 2004. So when I got there, I first of all, I knew I was already going there because I was coming from Korea. So I had the assignment prior to stepping foot in Hawaii. So I was so excited that I was going to be able to kind of connect with my dad's side of the family and really just get to experience the whole Hawaiian culture firsthand by living there, right? And I get there, I ended up not liking it.
Really?
Yeah. For like 2 months, I was kind of shocked that I couldn't get in a car, get on the interstate and kind of travel. It was different. It was not what I was expecting.
Kind of like that island fever kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of like the island fever. But after like 2 months, right, is when I really started to appreciate, the saying goes, and smell the roses. Started taking my time and really appreciating like going to the beach, trying to reflect on, some of the things that my dad would teach me or tell me his stories growing up, So I would, like my dad used to tell me stories about, he would go on like these trails through the mountains just to go visit his friends. And so I would kind of visualize that as I would drive down the highway, and it made me appreciate, some of the stories that he would tell me. So it's just something about that place, man. The weather's great. People are more kind. The traffic over there is terrible. It's horrendous. Much like over here, nobody's cutting you off. I mean, you may have, one or two here that have road rage, but nothing to the level of road rage here.
That's because you got the beach out the window.
Yeah, you got the nice mountains, blue skies, the ocean breeze. You're going to get to where you're at, right? You're just kind of cruising along with the rest of the traffic, man. And over here, man, it's on a whole nother level.
Why do you think it takes us longer in life to kind of appreciate things?
When you're younger, you don't really listen to at least for me, you don't listen to all the things that your parents tell you when you're young, right? You kind of think you know it all. And then, when you grow older, then you're kind of like turning into your parents, right? You'll notice like, oh, I'm starting to act like my dad. It's so weird.
My belly's starting to look like my dad.
I wish I would have, understood and internalized stuff at a much younger age, and everything went in one ear and out the other for me.
It took me, honestly, to basic training. And I remember calling my father saying I was a flight leader. I remember calling my dad going, these guys aren't doing this. And he goes, enjoy. He goes, see what you've done to us. That's the first time it kind of snapped into my head. Like, you know what? They were teaching me lessons and I just wasn't paying attention.
Basic training was, for me, it was a little bit different. It was a little rough, actually.
Why is that?
So first of all, me and my parents, we didn't get along quite well when I was a teenager. And so when I was in Korea with them, when my dad was out there, I didn't tell my parents I was joining the military until 2 weeks before I left to basic training. And so when I went to basic training, you got the strict regimen, you wake up, you do this, you start to realize like, okay, this is it. I'm an adult. They're teaching me and training me to do a particular job. And then you start to realize like, these are all the things my parents were telling me and trying to teach me, but I didn't have that connection with my parents to call them and thank them. So, remember when the time we used to get that telephone time and you can call your parents?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't call anybody.
Did you have a conversation with your father afterwards? Like, to talk to him about that kind of stuff?
I did a lot later in life though. I would say probably maybe about 5 years ago.
How'd that conversation go?
It came up naturally, man. We were on vacation to Hawaii. Me and my dad, we were up pretty late, just kind of drinking, slowly, just having conversations and reflecting on life. And the topic just came up naturally, man, about how I just left, didn't tell them. It didn't hurt him so much as it hurt my mom. Me and my mom still haven't talked about it. We've just kind of forgotten about it. I would say maybe I have kind of just let it be water under the bridge, and we've just naturally moved on. It's probably something I should have put in my letter, but it's one of the things I still regret. Like, I think I need to have that conversation.
Take me through. I mean, what do you want to say to her, or does she still hold a grudge on it? How do you know?
So I think it was actually me holding the grudge. When we were living in Okinawa, in Kadena, my parents were going through a tough time to where, they seemed like they were going to get separated. Right. And then at the time I was the only child in the house. My sister was much, much older, 6 years older. I say much older only because she graduated and then she left right after that. And I think I was still in the 5th grade. So when she left, I was like the only kid in the middle of, two parents constantly arguing and bickering, caught in the middle, kind of taking the brunt of whatever anger they had, right? That evolved, and to the point to where my mom said she was going to leave, and she didn't. She had mentioned, I'm going to leave him, and we'll get an apartment and we'll live together. And I was all thumbs up about that.
So she's having this conversation with you.
Yeah. We had a conversation, and it never happened. As an older guy now, I realized that's the grudge I held.
The grudge is that you didn't leave?
That she did not leave. She said we were going to go, she was going to separate him, and we were going to get an apartment together. And so you can, me and you can be together, and you can go to school and just be normal, right? For me, like, just no more arguing. And it never happened. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm glad they stayed together. Just for me at that time and that age, it was tough for me. When your mother says, "Hey, I'm gonna take care of you, and we're gonna leave, and we're gonna get our own place," all you think is it's gonna be happy, right? All you have to worry about is going to school and being a kid. But it didn't happen. That was the grudge, I guess, that I had, because I just didn't talk about it.
That's why you kind of ran off and joined the military?
I ran away from home, actually, which is kind of weird because you're on an island. Okinawa is a small island. And so in Okinawa, my cousin Bruce, his family lived there. His parents lived there, my uncle Tama and my auntie Ida. And so I ran away and stayed with them. And thankfully, they welcomed me with open arms. And so I was living with them. So after that conversation I had with my mom, she, it never happened. It's like, I just went ahead and ran away, right? Staying with my aunt and uncle the whole time up until my dad got a job in Korea, and I had to leave because I didn't have the SOFA status to live there by myself. So when I left to Korea, I was pretty much just working, coming home, doing the recruiting thing at the same time without my parents knowing about it. And then when I got the tickets to leave 2 weeks prior before leaving is when I told them, it's like, "Hey, I'm joining the military. I'm gone in 2 weeks."
What do you think that conversation would be like with your mother?
Man, I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it. I think that would be a tough conversation for me. I think, so let me rewind a little bit. When I was in Korea, I didn't talk to my mom at all. I would go to work, and I worked as a bartender. And so I would work at night. You bartenders, right? They only work at night. So I would wake up when the sun's about to go down, get ready, eat, get ready, dress, never even see my mom. I go to work, and then, the bars close, not all of them, but some of the bars would close where the military folks would go hang out at. Or when I would close, I would still hang out until the sun comes up. I'd come home and go right to sleep. So I'd be sleeping when my mom is up and would never talk to her. So I did that the whole time. So I was there for about, 8 months after we got there, I think. I was trying to go back to Okinawa to visit Bruce and all my friends, right? Obviously, all my friends were still there. I knew my parents weren't going to give me the orders or the leave paperwork to actually fly Space A. I met a friend through bartending who worked through Space A. He basically falsified some documents to get me on Space A. There I was. I went first thing in the morning, sat in the terminal by myself. It was the weirdest thing. I was the only person there flying Space A at the time. And this was early in the morning before my dad went to work. Next thing I know, when I was sitting there waiting, my dad walks in from the other end of the terminal. First thing I thought about was like, oh man, here it goes. And my dad's so calm, man. He can be smooth sometimes. He sits right next to me and goes, "Where are you going?" And I just started busting out in tears, man. And I told him I'm going to Okinawa, going back to Okinawa on vacation, right? He was like, "Why didn't you tell us?" And the first thing I thought of was, my mom, right? Like, she wasn't going to let me go. She was going to say no anyways. So I think part of that is, nobody wants their child to leave on bad terms. And I think about that a lot when I left to go to basic training, what that might have done to her, how she had felt. So I think I would have that conversation, tell her about that moment. I would talk to her about that moment and tell her I'm sorry that I haven't talked to her and I felt like I held a grudge when I didn't need to because she was going through her own thing, But as a kid, you don't realize that.
How are they now?
Oh man, they're cruising, man. They live in Hawaii. They're retired. They're just hanging out, man. My mom does hula, and my dad golfs. They're enjoying it, man.
Did the arguing stop?
I don't know when, but I would like to think a long, long time ago, right? Their argues are like bickering, but it's like the normal married couple bickering, right?
Yeah, I go through that a lot.
Yeah. But I like the fact that just blow it off like it's nothing,
Have you done Space A?
Oh, yeah.
I never have, and it's such a wasted opportunity. I mean, you could literally travel all around the world wherever the military goes if there's a seat available.
Absolutely. And so for me, going to the story, when my dad walked into the terminal, the space availability terminal, when he sat down next to me and asked me that question, where are you going? And I told him, mom wasn't going to let me leave anyways, just crying. And all he did was, so that's why I was saying he's so smooth, man. Like when your parents or maybe your dad does this, like all he has to do is just look at you and you know what he's talking about. Or if he says, nod his head or says, yep, like it kind of just says, okay, it's kind of reassuring that it's going to be okay. Right. And my dad did one of those gestures. He kind of looked over to me, nodded his head, and he pulled the leave paperwork out of his sports coat, his, work coat, and handed it to me. He goes, hey, here you go. And he just got up and walked away. He walked out across the empty terminal to the exit door and just left.
He gave you the real paperwork.
He gave me the real paperwork to fly legally. I don't know how he got the paperwork that fast. He has told me that he has people everywhere.
Did you get on the plane?
I got on the plane.
Oh, you did?
I flew Space A, went to Kadena and was there on a visitor visa for 90 days. And then I came back to Korea on the 90th day. I'll never forget that. It was like a growing up moment, It was like, I needed that. And I think my dad realized like I needed that. And I needed to go figure out myself. Right.
So that's what it was, it was you figuring out yourself.
Yeah. I thank my dad a lot for doing that and just trusting me.
With your cultures, I mean, family is everything.
Mm-hmm.
I can see why it bothered you not talking to her.
I didn't know how to talk about it. I don't know how to talk about it. I've always grown up not sharing my feelings, if you want to call it that, not knowing how to share my feelings, a tough subject to talk about with my mom. Yeah, it's tough, man.
Do you share your feelings now with your family?
I do with my kids. One of the things I wish I can do better, I'm always trying to work on to do better is to share very close and intimate feelings with my wife, with my cousin, and with everybody in general. But my two youngest kids, even my oldest one, man, I've had some very good conversations with them that I wish, that my parents would have had with me, like just talking very openly. And
give me an example.
We had a little get together at my house, and my oldest son came down to hang out with us. And we were hanging out in my garage. My garage is set up for like just kind of like a social setting. My oldest son and my middle child, my younger son, we're all sitting in the garage and we're talking about how my son Kai, some of the challenge he's having. His challenges come from having partial paralysis on his left leg when he was a newborn. He didn't have like those social type of skills because as a young kids can be mean, right? And you're trying to fit in. He carried that with him as a kid and as a teenager, right? The conversation in the garage just came up naturally. I'm like, hey man, don't worry about it. Like be you. And then my oldest son, he got into the conversation. It was a civilized conversation. We're going back and forth, trying to reassure him that it's okay. Like don't think people are judging you. It was just one of those type of conversations that you would think would be really difficult to have. But it happened naturally. And it was so awesome because I was having this conversation with my two sons. I would never have had that conversation with my parents at that age. Never would have happened like that.
Does he walk with a limp?
He does, slight limp, but it's hard to really tell.
The reason why I'm asking this is because my son at 26 years old, he came down where he's losing his legs.
Yeah.
Kind of like a drop foot kind of thing.
Yep.
And it's mentally, and he's like, I used to be an athlete. Why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? Probably much of the same conversation I'm having with him. And he'd been drinking a little bit, so it's more feelings and stuff. And I'm like, son, this isn't the end of the world. Yeah, it sucks, man. It sucks. Maybe it's that military mentality. It's like, man, this sucks. But the more we talk about it, the suckier it's going to get. But I had to have that same conversation. How did that make you feel? Like as a father, I know it crushed me to have this. But I also want him to see that there's a lot in life for you.
I think part of it too is parents, like, we're not experts. We're not doctors. We're not therapists. We just don't know how to approach a conversation, right? And so we're trying our best to have the hard conversation, but it's like a delicate conversation to have with your own kid, Probably a lot more difficult for you because your son is much older, right? Yeah, for Kai, it was a little bit different because he was so much younger. It happened when he was a newborn. And so younger kids are way more resilient. They're
still in that situation. And as a father, you still got to deal with it. I still love you. You're still my son.
I had the same type of conversations, man. It's just got to be there for them. I mean, whenever they need you, and you got to hope that they come to you first of all, and you create that type of relationship to where they come to you. If that's not there, for me, I don't know about for you, probably the same for you, but that would eat me up more than it would eat up my son.
How do you create that relationship?
Man, that's the toughest thing, especially we were talking about with technology. I think kids who are growing up with technology, man, they look for comfort through social media, man. And so those type of conversations that you would have with your parents are just hard to have, right? It's hard to create that connection. So for me and Kai, I think a lot of the opportunities that we had were, when family would come over and hang out, it was easier to force him to get off his electronics and come hang out with the adults, come hang out with auntie and uncle and your cousins. And as he got older, he was able to engage in some of the adult conversations. I think over time, slowly we would start talking about difficult topics. Kai calls Bruce uncle. What made Kai comfortable was that Bruce was also involved in the conversation. So Bruce would participate and kind of encourage the topic, right? Like we would kind of tag team, right? So Bruce would kind of bring it up, or I would bring up a topic and he would kind of add on to it, or I would add on to it, and make the conversation inviting, right? And the topic inviting for my son to kind of open up. And it would not be like just one conversation when you'd open up that first time. We're talking about multiple conversations and iterations over, a couple years.
Right.
It goes back to just being there.
So you're a chief in the United States Air Force. That's a huge accomplishment. What's the stat? Like 0.3% or 5%? Yeah. What is the stat that make your rank?
I think it's like 1% or something like that. I think there's like almost 270,000 now. There's about 2,600 chiefs in the Air Force.
That's such a huge accomplishment. Take me through your military career. What'd you do?
The Air Force, the military, it is definitely a huge component in how I have developed into a man. If it wasn't for the Air Force, I have no idea where I'd be. Went on an adventure, joined the military back in 99, basic training, became a computer systems operator. So I remember meeting with the recruiter. And so I met with the recruiter in Kadena when I went there for that 90-day visa to hang out with my friends. And in Kadena, the recruiter asked me, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know, computers. Computers are the future. She tells me, well, do you want to do computers in the air or on the ground? I was like, well, I don't want to fly. So computers on the ground. Technical training school was, after basic training, was in Biloxi, Mississippi. Cool thing there was my Uncle Tama, the family who took me in when I ran away in Okinawa. He retired from the Air Force in Biloxi.
Hey, you're just following family all around.
It's by pure coincidence. So when I got to Keesler, family was there. Bruce was there. I got to add this too, right? So when my parents and his parents were part of that Polynesian group in the Philippines, me and Bruce knew each other, and then we played together as little kids. We got pictures together as little kids. When my dad got the job in Okinawa, he was in Okinawa. And so we have pictures there growing up as well. And then after I left to Korea, and then Korea to join the military, and then ended up in Biloxi, Bruce was there as well. Pure coincidence. From Keesler, my first assignment was at the Pentagon.
Get out of here, really?
I went.
Well, that had to be intimidating.
Super intimidating, right? I mean, come on, basic training. All you know is like formation, you marching, left face, right face. And then all of a sudden you go to like corporate military.
Were you a one striper, two striper?
Zero striper.
Oh, my
Airman
God.
basic. It was the weirdest thing. So it was about 2.5 to maybe 3 months. I was an airman basic. And so walking up and down the halls, or even walking up to the door, everybody thought I was an officer. But when they looked for the officer,
He's one of them secret squirrel kind of guys.
Yeah, they were like, wait, what's going on here? That place is flooded with chiefs. And I remember a chief stopped me in the hallway one time after he had already passed me. He's like, hey, hold on. He grabbed me by the shoulder. He's like, let me take a look. He's like, wow, I haven't seen one of these in forever. Oh, man. All of a sudden you can see like, there's all kinds of Air Force people walking back and forth. And they're like, what's that chief doing with that guy?
Hey, Master, come over. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. He's got no stripes.
That's exactly what happened, man. I was like, oh gosh, here we go. Yeah, I'm Airman Basic. So that was definitely an experience.
I feel for you. I literally feel for you. I can see you.
I remember one time walking into the front door, and there was like a group of captains, young officers, FGOs, right? I don't know, maybe it was like a school or a class doing a tour or something. And I had about, I don't know, maybe about 100 feet, maybe 20 yards to get to the door. And here they're all coming out, probably like 40 of them. I was like, oh, here we go. So I was like, F it, man. Let me just hold it up all the way. I just held it up. I just held it up, man. And all of a sudden it was like a wave. I was like, okay, that was pretty cool. That worked out.
Oh my God. I would literally be sweating bullets.
I was. Day. I remember the very first day I walked into that building. Actually, I remember the very first day I landed here. My sponsor picked me up. He took me to the barracks and he said, hey, I'll pick you up in the morning.
And you're living in the barracks.
I was, living in the barracks. And so he picks me up, man. I'm like, I don't know what to expect. You know what I mean? And then I'm just found him like a lost kid. Awesome experience, man. I met so many awesome people there too. And that's the other thing. I didn't even work with a lot of military. I worked with majority contractors.
People like you, no sleeves, no stripers.
It was the weirdest thing. So yeah, after the Pentagon, I went to, I got non-vol to go to Korea.
Going home.
Yeah. But I went to Camp Red Cloud. So I went from like corporate Air Force, corporate military to the other end of the spectrum to an Army base in Korea. So I was there doing combat comm, a little bit north of Seoul. Everybody who was assigned to a unit lived in one barracks building. It was about, I don't know, 120 people or so.
My first duty station was overseas in England, and just the camaraderie, it's family.
Yep.
It becomes family. You eat, sleep, and work and play together.
That's one of the things that I'm not going to say I hate, but dislike about being stationed stateside, more so here in the DC area, right? Being overseas, you have the camaraderie. You don't have that here. When you couple that with being in a very big city, folks live so far away from where the job is at. So, right around lunchtime, everybody's thinking about, oh, my long commute. So everybody's ready to just rush out the door and go home. Having like a good like team bonding event or something like that is an afterthought. Here in Camp Red Cloud, we ate together. We all had rooms down the hall from each other. The job was literally it was a fenced in yard right behind our barracks building. So we'd walk like 100 yards to work. We had a little hidden hooch too where we worked. So we would kind of hang out after work right there, start there, and then move on over to the barracks. I mean, we did everything together. It was awesome. We would travel from base to base on the weekends and go party at all the different bases. That was so much fun. So after Red Cloud, that's when I got stationed in Hawaii. So awesome to have that opportunity. It Was there for 7 years.
Oh, you're so lucky. I really wanted that to be my last duty assignment. And what were you doing over in Hawaii?
So in Hawaii, I worked in the comm squadron on Hickam Air Force Base. Spent majority of my time there in the network infrastructure shop. So the IT guys that did all the networking and network switches and routers in the background. Learned so much there. Huge milestone, I would say, in my career, because had so many accolades, did a lot of volunteer work, did honor guard over there, started school there using tuition assistance.
Now, do you have your sights set? In the military, we call them checking boxes, right?
Yeah.
You're getting these accolades, you're doing extracurricular stuff, your school. I mean, did you have your sights set on Chief at that time?
I didn't. I'll backtrack a little bit. I think anybody who comes into the military, this is what I believe. I think anybody who comes into the military, they may not say it, but everybody is always looking to achieve, the highest level. Now, whether if you get there or not, or whether if you believe it or not, or whether if you think you're doing the right things or not, I think everyone's always thinking that in the back of their head. When I first joined the military, it's like, I'm going to be a chief. But I was not.
I wasn't.
Yeah, but I wasn't the guy who was.
Like, I'm going to do 4 years.
Yeah. Initially, I said, I'm going to do 4 years. I would have those thoughts sometimes like, oh, that would be really cool to make chief, right? I didn't know how to get there, nor was I spending tons of time to research on how to get there. In Hawaii, I think that stuff just happened naturally. Doing the honor guard stuff, I volunteered because another friend said, hey, man, let's just go do it. You get out of work. You do 1 week a month. And you get out of work. I was like,
it's such a cool job too.
I was like, that's awesome. And in Hawaii, there's veteran cemeteries on all the islands. So we would do little TDY trips, 1 day TDY trips to the Big Island, Kauai, Maui.
Oh, that's a scam right there. That's a good scam for a good, for a good cause.
Right? You don't realize like how honorable it is to do it until after the fact. My intentions going in were obviously all wrong, but I learned to appreciate it afterwards. I started school out there. I owe that to my wife, Jen. She was doing school while she was working. She kept telling me you should do school also. I was like, nah, I don't. Like, you finish school first, and you do that. But then you couple that with, how the EPR used to be written. Like, hey, you got to do one like self-improvement and like one volunteer.
CPR, that performance report, man.
It's money though, right? That the way that we used to tell people like you need to have like a self-improvement bullet.
Right.
You need to, that's perfect how indirectly folks are developing themselves by doing that. Like, so that's what I did, right? I remember my supervisor says, you got to take a class, go take a CLEP or something. I took a CLEP. I forgot what it was. And I passed. I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. And that's when I saw the tangible checkbox. Like, oh, I'm like 3 classes away from an associate's degree. All right, let's keep on going. And I remember the second CLEP I took, it was a math one. Failed. I was like, oh, that's not good. What other math CLEPs qualify for this check? And like, oh, there's another one I can take. I took that one, failed. I was like, oh.
So CLEPs are, you can go out and test out of a subject. Yeah,
for college credit. Yeah. I forgot what the acronym stands for. That's when I had to take my first real class. I took a math class. And from then on, it's just, I kept on going, right, to get that associates. When I got the associates, I was like, I'll just keep on going. And I got the bachelor's. That's what the military did for me when I was in Hawaii.
And what are you doing now?
So today, I am the commandant of headquarters U.S. Cybercom on Fort Meade. So commandant is kind of a confusing and loaded title. Usually in the Air Force or in the military, when you hear the word commandant, you think of like a commandant of a schoolhouse, or in the Marines, like commandant of the Marine Corps. In this case, it's not that. So I'm more of like a staff superintendent or a headquarters first sergeant, which they basically help take care of the health and morale, self-improvement. So programs like sexual assault awareness or sexual assault and response programs, anything to help with folks like their living situations, evaluations, decorations, and all that good stuff. Kind of like a sensor for the leaders in the headquarters to identify any issues for like training and all that good stuff. A weird title, lots of things to do, but it's all related to people.
Do you want to keep going as a chief? How many years do you have in?
I got 23 and a half.
You can do something like 30 or something like that, right?
I believe it's 30 years. And Someone, I think you had mentioned earlier, 32.
I don't know.
That was the first I ever heard of that. I was like, man, I don't want
I don't know. I mean, come on. I was only a master sergeant, so what do I know?
There are some E9s out there that have done more than 30 though, but that's because they're serving in like nominative jobs. I do not see myself serving in a nominative job or longer than 30, but I'm more of the guy that likes to just continue riding the Air Force wave, man. This is all I know, man. Military brat, joined the military. I'm enjoying it. I'm over 20 years. I only have to do another year and a half for a service commitment. As long as the Air Force continues matching my family's priorities, I'm just going to keep on going. We'll see what happens.
What do you mean matching your family's priorities?
I'm over 20 years. I mean, it's almost like I have the leverage now, if they tell me, hey, Chief Young, we're going to send you back to Korea, roundabout way, I can say, nah, my family doesn't want to go there, right? Nor do I want to be separated from my family. Been there, done that. Don't want to do it again. Just check out, retire. Air Force's needs doesn't match my family's priorities. And then it's time to hang it up.
I think you bring up a great point because it is, service before self, right? Yeah. Until you hit that 20 and then it's like, you do kind of have the power.
You do.
And once I went over 20, it was time for me. It would take the camera out of my hands if I would have made more rank. So it just wasn't my cup of tea to go higher. But man, when you're out, man, La, you miss it. You miss that camaraderie. You miss the brotherhood, sisterhood. Yeah. I mean, it is. I look back at what I did and go, man, I got to do some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
The opportunities of school and community. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really builds you into, I guess, what my dad always wanted of me, a proper gentleman, proper man.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I miss is, at least in my job, right, is doing all the technical work, right? Much like how you, right?
Yeah, you don't do that anymore.
Takes you away
Chief.
from the camera. Yeah. I miss that a lot, and every time I get a chance to interact with folks who are doing the job at the tactical edge, clicking the keys on the keyboard, I get excited, right? I remember when I was that young and the chief would come around, I'd be like, oh man, this chief, he thinks he knows everything. And it's,
that's what they're saying about you.
And that's what they're saying about me now, And I realize that, so I try to make fun with the conversations that I have with the folks who are working, doing the real work. So
my chiefs in my career field, they hated me.
Yeah,
they did not like me. Again, I was kind of a rule breaker, rule pusher.
That's what we need, though.
Yeah, they didn't think so.
They were the ones chasing Chief, probably.
Ding, 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 ding. I hope they're listening right now. Yeah. But again, I get what they were doing. It just, I had a bigger love and passion, and I felt that I could serve my service better. And it wasn't always me running out doing those jobs, but it was also mentoring and bringing people up along. Now I go, man, that chief retirement, that would be nice.
I think it was happiness, man. Right?
It 100%.
You got out for happiness, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, you got out for happiness, right? I don't think you would have been happy, right? Like you were saying, those chiefs, though, like they have to like encourage you. If your decision was to get out, they got to encourage that. Why would they want to change you as a person, right? You did your time, right?
God, I hope they're listening.
It'd be terrible to say, oh, what are you going to do when you get out? What? No. Even if you only did 10 years, which is a tough time frame, right? Because like you go over 10, might as well go for 20. Or if you get out before 10, then, oh yeah, I feel a little bit better about getting out. Let people make their own decision, right? Help them out. Let them know what the options are. Encourage it.
And that's the difference between a leader and a manager right there. Knowing what's best for the individual or what their choice is.
Yeah.
And then fostering that growth of where they want to go.
It's tough too, right? Like, you got so many accolades. So you had a lot of talent, and the Air Force was losing that talent when you made that decision to get out, right? All the Air Force can do and those chiefs can do is try to figure out how to incentivize, give you some incentives to stay in. If those incentives aren't available to you at that moment, what are you going to do, right?
Jump ship.
Yeah, right.
And relive the memories.
The good thing is that they retained you or at least you're still in the industry. So you're developing other photographers, right?
Absolutely. And definitely give back to the military whenever I can. Love still running workshops and
awesome.
Mentoring on the side.
Yeah. So
Well, congratulations on your career.
Thank you. Yeah.
Harder question is, what'd you think about when I had to ask you to sit down and write your last letter?
It was an interesting concept, man. I started to really think about it, a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts. I was interested, but at the same time, scared of it. And I was like, hey man, sounds like something maybe that would be good for me and maybe therapeutic at the same time, Like I said early on, it's really hard for me to express my feelings sometimes. So I'm hoping this will help me. Man, nervous just reading it.
Don't be nervous. It's too easy.
Yeah. To my family, loved ones, and Jen. Wow. Typing this is tough as I sit here in a quiet coffee shop early in the morning, but it gives me the right setting to reflect on the life that I've lived. This is my last day, but I just needed a moment by myself to write my thoughts down on paper before spending my last moments with you. This is a day that some people think about during emotional times, but this is a day that I have thought about many times in the past when I was extremely happy, like when I learned something new about myself that I felt completed me, or moments that filled me with joy and so much aloha. And that is what I want you to remember me by. I want you to think of the values that I had, the good times and the happy moments. Let me ramble on. Growing up, I think I was a tough kid to raise because I felt like I was never doing the right thing in my parents' eyes. But I was too young at the time to realize that they were just trying to teach me between right and wrong. And they just wanted the best for me. You don't really start realizing that until you start growing up yourself and experiencing life. Kaimana. Kai. It wasn't until you were born that I was filled with so much emotion and happiness. Mom and I spent a lot of time in the hospital with you when you were a baby, and I never wanted to leave your side, even when you went into your surgeries. I felt hopeless because I couldn't go into the surgery room with you, but everything turned out okay every time. After all the hospital visits, I've learned that you are the strongest kid in the world. I'm so amazed at how you've grown into the young man that you are, even with all the hospital visits. You're extremely smart and extremely caring, and you're taller than me. Reflect on the journey that you have been on from a kid to the man that you are now. Tie those thoughts with the many deep conversations that we've had. And when you do, I hope that you can truly see that I am extremely proud of who you are and who you're going to be. I wish I could live to see the father that you're going to be to your own kids. And Sienna, you are the girl that turned me into a softie. It's funny but true. I never realized I could be tender and relaxed before you were born. I used to carry you everywhere, even when you were in elementary school. I'd like to think it was because you always wanted me to be there to hold, hug, and cuddle with, and to carry you, obviously. When I deployed, that's when we found out that you had alopecia, and it was tough for me because I couldn't hold you when you needed me. But I'm so proud how you've grown to live with it. You didn't let it stop you from doing anything like competitive cheer, and you cheered with the best of them. You are my pretty baby, my Pualani, my baby girl. You're such a beautiful young lady, intelligent, and super corny funny at the same time. Mom and I always tried to push you to do cheer in college, but in reality, you're capable of doing anything. Do anything you want. Be anything you want. And always know that I'm right there next to you always. I always dreamed of walking you down the aisle at your wedding. Realize that I'll be there walking with you. Damon, my big boy. I'm so proud of you for being you and not letting anyone stop you from being you. I remember you being so helpful when you were young, and you even managed to play baseball year round all the way through high school while being helpful at the same time. There were times when you were being a teenager, but that was normal. Mom and I always talk about how we miss watching you play baseball. And I loved watching the bond that you had with your teammates and coaches on and off the field. I believe it was a combination of baseball and the island culture that made you a laughing and sociable guy. Mom and I always talk about how So many things changed in your life when we left Hawaii. You had a surgery, you left your friends, and you had to figure it all out now that you had graduated high school. I like to think that Mom and I did our best to push you forward in life. And I think we did. You adapted to the change so quickly, and now you're the most social butterfly that I know. You made home where you were at. Much like I can't believe your style is like a cowboy now. And I love that about you. I'm so proud of you, especially how I see you treat Daniel. I see how you hug him, and I wish I would have hugged you more when you were younger. Before you started growing up into a teenager when hugging your dad wasn't cool. I'm also so proud of the big brother that you are to Kai and Sienna. I hope that you guys find time to be together as you get older, no matter where you guys are at in the world. Ki'ilani, Grace, you are my sister that I love so much. I wish we weren't so separated by space and time throughout our lives, because the older I got, I realized that I wanted to be with you guys every day. I wanted to wake up and eat breakfast with you guys and talk about how your day was going to go, then talk about the day at dinner. You know, the type of things that siblings do. Key, much like your kids and my nephews and nieces, they do those type of things. They are so close. I want you guys to realize that I wanted to be there for every big event, life milestones, and just whenever you needed me. I wanted that for all of our kids and grandkids. Mom and Dad, who would have thought that you would live longer than me? I wish that upon no parent, but I want you to know that it's okay. I like to think that I've lived the life that you wanted me to live. I feel fulfilled and accomplished, and I hope that is enough for you to not be sad. Trust me, you guys didn't make it easy, but at the same time, I understand that I made it harder for the both of you. I guess you would think you were lucky that I turned out okay, but it was really all the values you taught me growing up and just didn't realize it. Believe it or not, but those values and sayings stuck with me. Like life is short, family, love, aloha, and togetherness are some of them. And I can also think of some of the ones that stuck along on the way, like be in the moment, having courage and honesty. These are the things that I've tried to teach your grandkids, and I want you to know that they understand all of them and much, much more. I love the both of you so much. Bruce, you're the brother I never had. My mind is filled with so many memories of love and happiness that I could go on for days, weeks, months, years, and quite a few six-packs if I were to tell them all. My dad always told me that you can't have more best friends than the number of fingers you have on one hand. I only filled one of those slots. I know sometimes I didn't act like a best friend, and it was never intentional, but it hurts me to know that I didn't. I really don't have any excuses other than I talk too much and I have the worst memory. I've heard somewhere that goldfish only have a 10-second memory, and that's me. I live in the moment and sometimes say the wrong things and don't realize it. Not sure what my point is, but I hope I've said nothing hateful and that you forgive me for the times I disappointed you. I love you, brother. And Jen, I have so much to say. I was the worst and selfish like another kid at times, but I hope that I was more loving. I'll never forget when I found out that you lived close by when I got stationed in DC the first time. I had so many questions, feelings, and excitement when I heard that. But just to find out that you had a boyfriend. Come to my luck, you ended up breaking up with him, and then we got together. I'll never forget the life we had together and the kids that we raised. The kids are the best. And I know you worry about them all the time, even now that they're older, but I'm here to tell you that we raised them right. You are the best mother to them, and they have exceeded my expectations already, our expectations already. I wish I was going to be here with you to see them exceed them and even more. You also made me a better man. You pushed me to do school and more school. You pushed me to go further in my career without regard for yours. You motivated me just watching some of the things you do for our kids. Well, here's a little secret. You're the better parent. I know it. I see how you're tough on the kids, but you're so tactful with it. I know because you did the same to me. You've helped me through the hard times as well. I was so broken when Kai was still a baby, and we went to his many hospital visits, even when I wasn't there with you, and I was gone for a year. I was also broken when Sienna had her alopecia, and I was far away again for a year. I was in a really bad place, and you helped me get through those hard times. And I love you so much for that. I'm so amazed at how strong and calm you were for me and the kids. I hope I did the same for you. I'm going to miss laying next to you. I'm going to miss hanging out with you. I'm going to miss talking about our kids and about our future with you. I hope you're strong and continue to live out those dreams. Don't be alone. Be with family, friends. Find a new partner if that's what makes you happy. Just know that I will forever be grateful and love you forever. Jen, you're the woman behind it all. There's so much more I want to type. I wish I had more time to write. Learn to experience and internalize all the things life has to offer early on so you can truly enjoy the life you have on this earth. As Papa would say, live up. I can honestly say that I have lived the life that I wanted to live. I have no regrets. I've lived with aloha, compassion, and respect. To my family, when you visit the Pacific Ocean, look to the horizon at sunrise or sunset, and I'll be there with you looking at it too. I love you, Jen. Much aloha, La, and Dad.
La, what are you trying to say with that letter?
So much, man. I'm trying to really tell them that I love all of them, like for the kids, I'm just so proud of them. Sometimes, our kids, as parents, right, our kids try to live up to the expectations that we have for them. I want my kids to realize, like, I don't care. You don't have to be like me. Do what you want to do. Me and Jen have raised them up to the point, at this point in their lives to where I know they're going to be okay. And I'm proud of how they've turned out so far, because they've learned the same values that my parents have taught me, so they're going to be okay. And I just want them to know that, to realize that, and have the confidence to know that, right? So that way they can enjoy living life. And for my parents, I want them to know that I recognize now that I have my own kids, obviously, and I'm older, I want them to recognize that I understand. And that I'm sorry for being a bad kid, And to Bruce, he's like a brother I never had, a brother from another mother. I feel like I disappoint him sometimes, or maybe act a certain way that disappoints him, but it's never my intention, Like I said, I have the worst memory. I live in the moment. Now, I don't do nothing irrational, right? But, sometimes I guess I just do things that people don't agree with or he doesn't agree with. And I just don't realize it, It's never my intention to be that way. And I want him to know that I'm sorry for acting crazy sometimes or acting weird sometimes. Just a weird guy, I guess. And to Jen, I just want her to know that she is amazing. I don't think I tell her that enough, I mean, shoot, man, I'm the man who I am today because of her. We've been married over 20 years. And man, she's so strong, man. Kai was a newborn when he had, so for his leg, his partial paralysis on his left leg was due to malpractice. And for me, that was tough. It's my son, right? You would think the mother, Jen, my wife, would be, at least for me, I would have thought she would have been more angry, more sad. Man, that was me, and she wasn't. I don't know how, man, but she was so strong. Those are tough times for me, man. If it wasn't for her, I would have been in a different place, in a bad place. Man, it's like she was taking care of another kid. Like, Sometimes I feel guilty for acting the way I was, or I just want to thank her so much. And that's with just Kai, and she, took care of Sienna. When I was deployed for a year, she didn't even work. She volunteered to be part of the PTA the whole year I was gone. So that way she could be there with Sienna when she was having, she was losing her hair due to alopecia. That's so awesome that she did that. I don't know, like a lot of the things that she does is naturally, it amazes me. Sometimes I feel like I don't do that, like it doesn't naturally happen. And I want to tell her, like, I thank her for all of that, like she's the best and I love her so much. I know I don't show it enough. Maybe it was the way I was raised or the problems that I had with my parents, right? Like we were talking about earlier. If we're talking in terms of last letter, I wish I would do that more. And I realize now I still have that opportunity. I need to do that more. And in this letter, like I want all of them, all my family, to include my sisters. Like, I wish I could have spent more time with them. And I want all of them to know that they need to spend more time together as a family. I want them to realize like that is important when it comes to life, right? Like a career is going to be a career. Your job is going to be a job. Like there's going to be life after a career. Some people don't realize that until it's too late, and don't be sad. Don't be sad. Like in the letter, I want them to know to don't be sad that I'm gone. I'll always be there with them.
What do you think the greatest thing Jen taught you?
That's a good question. I would say to not be afraid, man. Don't be afraid to try, like school. I think me trying to be the macho man, like, oh, I don't need school. Really, I was probably scared of it. She taught me not to be afraid. And with the kids, I was so scared, like with Kai, I was so scared that he wasn't going to be able to walk. We would have those conversations, and I would tell her, like, I'm scared that he's not going to be able to walk. And she taught me to not be afraid, like he'll be okay. And with Sienna, when I was deployed, and she lost a tremendous amount of hair from alopecia.
What is alopecia?
A disease or something, but it's autoimmune to where you'll just start losing your hair. So you'll get bald patches. And sometimes it's induced by stress or something. It can get to the point to where you lose all of your hair on your head. And sometimes some people with alopecia will lose even the eyebrows. And so with my daughter, she was, I want to say second grade, maybe. When I was deployed, she lost, half of her hair on her head. And I remember the first time my wife showed me a picture. She sent me a picture when I was deployed. And it tore me apart when I saw that. But my wife told me, don't be afraid. Like, she's okay. I'm with her every day. Strong lady, man. And I think that's one thing I think I've learned. Don't be afraid.
As military members, we deploy a lot, gone a lot from our homes, and we have to depend on strong family members to be there for us.
Yes.
And that's such a blessing. But how did it make you feel when you knew you had to be away and this stuff's going on in your children's life?
Obviously, like any other parent, you don't want to leave. You want to be there. You don't want to miss anything. I was much like another kid to Jen. I was confident, that she had it. Jen is an extremely, extremely independent woman. She's not timid at all. She speaks up. She asks a gazillion questions. She knows how to navigate through everything, and like from getting power of attorneys to getting general power of attorneys, so that way she can do certain things. I'm like, what do you need a power of attorney for? You know what I mean? Thankfully she didn't run away with all my money or anything, but every time I would talk to her when I was deployed, she never, her tone of voice never showed any stress. I never sensed any stress from her because she was very independent, very strong. I was able to focus on work, and focus on myself in a deployed location and take care of myself. I thank her tremendously for that.
We had recently on before another guest, and it was the first time I heard them say, after I'm gone, it's okay for my spouse to go off and marry. And you put that in your letter.
I did. I think it'd be miserable to miss out on an opportunity to be happy. I'd like to think she would never find another person again. But no one really wants that, like I don't want her to be sad for the rest of her life or have some type of memorial in the corner of the room with pictures of me. Like, sure, a picture here and there, but not like a full blown memorial, right? Go be happy, go do things, life is short, man. Like, enjoy it.
In your letter, you talk about your friend Bruce, and you talk about disappointing him. How do you think you've disappointed him?
Friends will be friends. Sometimes you'll have heated discussions, or you may do something that your friend doesn't like. There have been, some situations like that, with me and Bruce. But in my case, like I honestly don't know. These are all occasions where we were all drinking. I remember just the bad vibe. I don't remember the exact words I might have said or what I've done. But it definitely, those nights, so those instances would end with a bad vibe. When those times would happen, I feel like I disappointed him. I don't, like, did I do something or did I do something that was totally unexpected that he never would think that I would even do? I don't know if disappointment is the right word, but I feel like I disappointed,
Well, it means enough to you, right?
Yes.
The disappointment to me is a big word. Where did your father learn that you can only count the number of friends on one hand?
I don't know. He might have learned it from his dad. It's a good one, though.
I learned that 8 years ago when I met my wife, and her father said the same thing to her. That was the first time I heard it, because my wife has all these friends.
Yeah.
And he goes, "You don't have all these friends."
Yeah.
He goes, "You should be able to count the number of friends on one hand."
We meet so many people throughout our lives. We call them acquaintances, we call them friends, but I mean, like, truly best friends that you would literally drop everything on at a moment's notice to go help them if they needed help. Can't have more than 5 of those guys. And I only got 1.
Wow, with Jen and maybe like your mom, these great women that are behind us, are they kind of the backbone?
When I think about my mom, she definitely deserves the credit as well. She did her best with what she had, I mean, she grew up in the Philippines and she tried to keep her marriage together early on, right? Obviously it's worked out to this point, but at that moment when I was young, she tried to hold it all together, and one thing I didn't mention was, my mother, she also went through cancer at the same time, right? So she was trying to keep her marriage together, trying to be a mother to her kids at the same time, all while battling cancer. So I think that had a little bit to do with it. And she definitely deserves the credit, much like I give credit to Jen, I don't thank her enough, she definitely has molded me into, even though it was tough at times. And I remember a lot of her conversations or words, and it didn't sink in back then, but I owe her a lot of credit. Like she definitely helped mold the man who I am today. Coincidentally, I obviously didn't realize until later in life.
You said in your letter that you could go, you feel you've led a fulfilled life. Is there anything in life that you feel like you haven't achieved or done or would like to do?
When I say I feel like I have lived a good life, a fulfilled life, I've done a lot of things. I think there are a lot of things that I would like to see that I can't control, like having grandkids.
That's mine too.
Sounds weird, but I can't wait till my kids have kids when they're still kids though. My kids are still kids, It's so crazy. It's almost like you get a second opportunity to see your kid reborn, but it's not your kid, In that sense, I wish that I lived to see that day, to see my grandkids, or to see my kids have kids, I should say, and to see them grow up and be happy. The other thing to me, this is not important, but something I want. And again, I can't control. I want to walk my daughter down the aisle when she gets married. Oh man, I'm going to cry like a big baby when that day happens, man. Sienna, man, she's my baby girl, man. She's got me wrapped around her little tiny pinky when she was a baby. Even to this day, still wrapped around.
Oh, you said she made you soft.
Yeah.
All I've seen is a soft guy today.
So she's one of the women behind it all, man. But yeah, I would love to walk my daughter down the aisle. I'll be so happy.
Give me your tip for a successful family. You've been all about family today.
And it's not until you travel a lot and you're gone away from your family a lot is when you realize like how important they are. And so even before all this travel, my parents would always try to instill like the family. I would see it. I would be around it. Family get-togethers. We'd hang out, hang out to the wee hours in the morning. When you couple that with the amount of time being separated from your family, you really start to cherish that, right? Some people don't get to experience that until their kids grow up and move away. That's when they're separate. But if it's, if you travel like in the military, you kind of get that experience early on. And so I would say, create opportunities, create that time and space to where you can be together with your family. Sometimes it might be forced fun, man. Your kids might be teenagers, right? Obviously you don't force it to the extreme where they'll be extremely rebellious. You can kind of be creative, secretive in creating opportunities, surprise birthday party or something like that, but create opportunities, time and space to be together, create those memories. And it doesn't have to be memories of like going to, Disneyland or Disney World, like even just being together in a house, watching a movie. I would wake them up in their sleep just to let them know that I love them, right? When I travel, every time I would leave, and every parent does this, I'm sure. Every day when they go to work or when I go to work, I would always walk in and say, grab them by the leg. Like, hey, have a good day. I love you. Creating those type of memories for them, they'll cherish those memories. Like, oh, my dad used to do this every morning. Just being together. That is what life is. Going to work, being a chief. There's life after an Air Force. Creating memories with family is what I would say. That would be my advice.
Well, in your letter, you say aloha a lot. Forgive me, but I always thought aloha just meant hello.
Aloha is it's what you make it, right? Usually it means love, endearment, but it can also mean like respect, it's like a spirit, like just being very caring. I don't know if there's a true definition. It's more of like an emotion of just loving and giving and respectful, showing compassion. Some of the sayings they have in Hawaii are, hey, brah, they see aloha, right? Live aloha, or the aloha spirit. That's what it means. It's family. It means family too. And you don't have to be a Hawaiian to feel the aloha. In the South, it's Southern hospitality. In other locations of the world, it might be called something else. It's just a different saying. But yeah, aloha is love and family, all that good stuff. Having that sense of fulfillment in life.
Chief, more importantly, La, cannot thank you enough for sharing your family with us today. Aloha, brother.
Aloha.